philosophically with what I'd like to do in terms of research. But I also still love design. And I think this idea of urban design linked with urban planning is really critical and something that architecture students typically don't get in their base education. So I've actually had the opportunity to teach a number of architecture studios, urban design studios, and I'm helping another professor here develop an urban design program for this university and a university in Iraq. So it's been a really great opportunity. I'd just like to add that if you really are interested in interdisciplinary education, I think that this program does a really good job at excelling at sort of working with different disciplines within urban planning. And if you're not an architect, if you're not a designer, but you have an interest in that, I'd say there are opportunities to sort of learn more about those professions, among others.
All right, thank you, Alex. And I see Nick just joined us. So Nick, please talk about your research as well as the activities at the National Center for Smart Growth.
Sure, happy to, Hiro, and thanks for having me. I'm actually going to share my screen because I have just 2 slides that I want to show everybody. So it's great to see you all. I see there's like 10 prospective students here, which is encouraging. So I'm Nick Finio. I am the Associate Director of the National Center for Smart Growth, but I'm also a PhD candidate in urban and regional planning. I got my master's degree in urban planning actually here at the University of Maryland, and I liked it so much that I decided to stay, and I haven't left yet. And that's because sort of in the middle of my PhD degree, Professor Garrett Knapp offered me a position to be sort of a full-time research staff at the Center for Smart Growth, where I've been engaged on a variety of projects. So I am finishing my PhD a little more slowly, but I am hoping to be done and planning to be done in the spring of next year. And I've had some of my work published. So if you search my name with any of those journals, you'll see myself and my co-authors. But my primary focus is on gentrification and studying the relationship between public investment and gentrification in the Purple Line corridor, also the relationship between gentrification and smart growth, since we are at the Smart Growth Center, and also the sort of like quantification and definition of the concept of gentrification. So it's really a quantitative dissertation. I don't usually teach in the URSP program or the URPD program because I am mostly working on research contracts at NCSG, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, but I did get the opportunity to teach the community development course in the spring of 2019. And many, in fact, almost all PhD students in the program will get an opportunity to teach, so I could talk more about that if anybody has any questions. So yeah, I do a lot of research work supporting NCSG. I also support the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, which some of you may have heard of. The Corridor Coalition is sort of like a public-private university partnership to support equitable TOD, transit-oriented development in the Purple Line corridor in Maryland. If you come to Maryland, you'll certainly notice pretty quickly that the state is spending a couple $2 billion to build a new light rail line that will go right through the middle of campus. So we are deeply engaged in research about how communities are changing in and around the Purple Line where it's being constructed. We care about access to the train. We care about building more affordable housing near the train. We care about making sure small businesses in and along the route are not displaced. So those are just an overview of me, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Center for Smart Growth as well, because I'm sure many prospective applicants have heard about the NCSG. So there are 4 full-time faculty with joint appointments. Dr. Aseki, who's here with us, has one of those joint appointments. And what that means is professors in the department, some of their time is paid as researchers at NCSG, where they can go after grants and contracts with the federal government or foundations or other agencies to do research on, sort of real practicable planning problems. And they're doing that, some of their time they're doing that at NCSG, and the other time they're teaching in the program. So Dr. Knapp does that, as does Dr. Longamam and Dr. Dawkins. Dr. Ronit Eisenbach, who's in the architecture department, does not have one of those joint appointments, but she does manage a program about creative placemaking at NCSG. So that's sort of the core. There's the tenure track and tenured faculty, but then there's research and program staff, and this has been expanding here at the National Center for Smart Growth, especially over the last 3 years as NCSG has sort of grown. So I'm the associate director, which means my hands are on all the projects that we do, but we have other folks like Dr. Sevgi Erdogan. She's actually leaving us in January, but she managed some of our transportation research through a contract with the State Department of Transportation. Lily Mernon is a research assistant who just graduated from our master's program earlier this year and helps with a bunch of research projects. Sheila Somashekhar runs our Purple Line Corridor Coalition. Kiara Garland runs our Small Business Anti-Displacement Network with Dr. Langamam, and Kim Fisher runs our PALS program, and I'll talk about all those acronyms in a minute. We also have administrative staff who most of their time is spent helping NCSG do all of the admin things that are required to run a small office with about 10 or 15 people at it. And then we also have affiliate faculty. So these are folks in the university or at other universities who sometimes engage on research projects with us. But we also usually hire, it varies significantly depending on projects and the semester, between 5 and 10 different graduate assistants. Some of those graduate assistants may be half-time, some of them may be full-time, some of them may be hourly, and they're usually helping out with one specific research grant or contract or project. So I talked about the PLCC. I'll talk a little bit more about some of these other programs. One is called PALS. That stands for Partnership for Action, Learning, and Sustainability. The PALS program is sort of like a student engagement program with the community. So it's a pretty neat program. What happens is that a municipality or a county will actually contract with the university and pay us a small fee, less than $10,000, to have a professor sort of organize their course through action learning about a specific problem that community is facing, and produce a deliverable that hopefully the policymakers or the administrative staff in those counties or cities can use. So it might be studying how to redo a housing program in a county in Maryland, or it might be studying an environmental issue.
Okay,
or,
Nick, could you stop for seconds?
Yes.
So Alex's time may be limited. So if any of the participants here have questions about the architecture program, I would like them to ask questions first.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Alex? No?
Hi, Professor. My name is Yaji, and I have some questions regarding this program.
Yeah, this program in general, or specifically about the study in the architecture field?
In general, for the
In
PhD.
general, okay. So could you hold for seconds? Could you hold for now? Do you have any question about the architecture field in the PhD program?
But I want to focus on urban planning for your urban planning program, but I have a good background in architecture. I want to know that whether if I was accepted in your program, whether I have this opportunity to teach in your architecture program, as I have a good background in architecture. I have been about 5 years a university lecturer at the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism of Hakeem Sabzori University. Could you please let me know if I will be accepted, I should focus, and if we have teaching opportunities, should I focus in urban planning, or I will have the chance to teach in your architecture program?
So as I said, URPD program itself doesn't offer any TA-ship. And then there is always the discussion with the other program directors. So in terms of the TA-ship opportunities in the architecture programs, we need to run through your qualifications with the director of the architecture program. So that in some case, with the backgrounds in the architecture field, even though your focus is urban planning, you are able to get such opportunity. So one of the students in our program has a planning background, and then she is teaching a course in the historic preservation. And so that is possible, but again, I cannot promise anything at this point. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I mean, if I just could quickly jump in there, I'd say the prospects look good. There's certainly not, as Hiro said, promised, but if you do get in the program, feel free to email me and I can try to help you as much as I can. There's always a demand for the studio courses. And if that's something you really want to do, you know, feel free to reach out. It's like a big family here, even though we have different lanes, you know, I think there's certainly a strong outlook for that.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely send you an email. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. All right. Any other questions? Especially for Alex? No? I'm seeing 5 persons at a time. So, okay. So if not, then I'll get back to Nick.
Sure. Just a few more points about our different programs. I talked about the PALS program. The S-band program, Bianca could tell you a lot more about that than I could. And have you spoken about that yet, Bianca?
I have not.
Okay, maybe I'll just let you take like.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca Andrews again. I am a PhD candidate in the Urban and Regional Planning and Design program, along with Alex. We're in the same cohort. So SBAN stands for the Small Business Anti-Displacement Network, and it is a contract that we have with JP Morgan and Chase. And essentially, we were designed to help small minority and immigrant-owned businesses fight displacement, particularly in places that are gentrified. So we focus on 14 different metropolitan areas, and we created a toolkit, which is now published, that basically pulls together all of the strategies, tools, and policies that have been used in other areas to protect small businesses from displacement. And we put them together in one toolkit, organizing them in a way that would give them access to business advocates, policymakers, and also small business owners themselves, so that they know how to fight some of these issues that they're facing. Right now, we're working on a literature review as well. So we've already published a toolkit. We call it a brown paper. So feel free to take a look at the SBAN website. I'll drop the link in the chat for all of you. And that is led by Dr. Willow Lungamam and Dr. Garrett Knapp. And then we have an advisory board, which are some really influential urban and regional planning faculty, staff, and also small business owners across many different areas. So there's a lot going on with the Small Business Anti-Displacement Network, but we're really proud of, you know, getting that grant, the work that we've done so far, and the work that we're going to be able to produce out of that.
Thanks, Bianca. That's great. And yeah, the work that SBAN is doing is very exciting. That's a new project that really just got off the ground this year. So smart cities is another avenue of research that has been going on more recently. Professor Lungamam and Professor Bierbaum in the planning program had some NSF funding to do some research about how smart cities, which is like really hard to define, but that's the interface between technology and urban planning and governance, how that impacts communities. So think things like community Wi-Fi or smart trash cans or like geolocated buses, stuff like that. So that's a place that we have tried to stay involved in. Hiro can talk about some of the transportation research that he has led or is going to lead, but we also have a longstanding contractual relationship with the State Department of Transportation. You can find more about that on our smartgrowth.org website. We've done a lot of things like transportation modeling for the State Highway Administration, land use transportation interaction over the years. Creative placemaking, I can't talk much about, but we do have Dr. Ronit Eisenbach in the architecture program who is going after, that's another program just getting off the ground, but going after a lot of grant money to do creative work in sort of public space and architecture and planning for that one. In housing, we have done a lot of work supporting the state government of Maryland, the State Department of Housing and Community Development in their research on creating more affordable housing in the state. We also frequently help out Montgomery County and Prince George's County governments. And community development is deeply intertwined with that and the work of the purple line. So all of those things are sort of the areas that we touch. But just to give you an idea of like how the NCSG works, we do have a line of funding that comes down to us from the university. That's like our hard money that goes to support the faculty and some of the staff time. But faculty and staff go after grant money and contract money with local government, with the federal government, with foundations, and bring in, depending on the year, $1 million or $2 million. A lot of that money goes to support salaries for graduate assistants. It goes to buy data. It pays for overhead, but that's how we employ that many people with that small of a budget. So that's the kind of work that we do. And we'd be interested to see applications from any prospective PhD student to see if they can match up with our programs after they've been admitted. So great to talk to everybody. Happy to take any questions about NCSG or my work specifically before I turn it back to Hiro.
All right, thank you, Nick, for the introduction of the National Center for Smart Growth. And so now I would like to open up again for Q&As. And so Yeji, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing your name, but you had a question, so please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had one more question for Nick, probably about the NCSG. I saw from the website that the NCSG can probably support 3 PhD students each year, and that 3 PhD students position is someone you want to work together with?
At this point in the year in November, I can't quite answer that question. What I can say that we'll do is have the applications and the admitted students from Hiro, then NCSG. We need to figure out people that we want to work for us, but we'll have a better idea of that in the spring. And that depends on a lot of things because we don't always know what we're doing next year. We get new grants, we get new projects, and it can change pretty quickly. But we do typically have, it depends on the year, but at least 1 or 2 PhD students working on different projects, sometimes as many as 4 or 5.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the application review process, we will share the applications with other faculty members, and depending on the research interest, and then also with the people at the National Center for Smart Growth for potential GA-ship.
Okay, and Professor, I think you said before there are like 2-year funding for 2 students next year.
2+ students. So the PhD program itself has funding to support PhD students. So that is limited to 2 students. But National Center for Smart Growth and other individual faculty members may get the research funding, which provides you the GA-ship. So if the centers and other faculty members provide financial support, then the PhD program doesn't have to financially support those students, right? So in that sense, as the school, we offer the financial supports for more than 2 students, as long as the faculty members and the research centers provide financial support. That's what I meant. Okay.
So in general, from our past experience, will all students get financial supports from either from GATA or from other fellowship?
That is not always the case. So we admit some students without funding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Another question is, when should we decide the minor field? Like, I know when we submit all the application materials, we should definitely decide the major field we are going to do. But do you think we need to also decide it now before submitting all the things, or we can do it later after we go into the school?
Well, you need to have certain ideas of the research interest that you'd like to include in your applications. So otherwise, we cannot really make a judgment whether or not you can work with any of our faculty members. So I emphasize is that importance of the matching between your research interest and the faculty research interest. So even if a student applicant is an excellent candidate, if there is no one who shares the research interest with that applicant, we may not admit that student.
So the manner field is also important just to match the faculty members.
Yes, definitely important.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that is also the protection for you, because if you kind of push yourself and then try to work with some faculty here, but if that faculty doesn't share your research interest, then you will not get any advising or mentoring after all. So that is going to be a bit, not just a bit of hardship, but it's a lot of difficulty. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Hero, we have one question in the chat, and then I see Asim also just raised his hand. Asim, give me one moment. I'm going to ask this question in the chat, and then we'll get to you. So the question in the chat, Hero, is do you have to submit a separate application to NCSG, or are you automatically considered with your PhD application?
Again, we will share your application with the staff, including the NIC, at the National Center for Smart Growth. So you don't have to submit a separate application at the time of applications to the program. And if necessary, the NCSG staff members may approach you to submit additional material, but as a default, you don't have to.
Thank you, Hero. Asim?
Hi, yeah. So I have like a follow-up question about like matching research interests with faculty members. So like when Dr. Hiro said, like even if the student is very brilliant or whatever, he will not be admitted if there's no one able to supervise his project. So in that case, will the candidate be informed that the rejection is due to that particular reason and not other shortcomings? Because as an applicant, it would be kind of, I think, a good
in the past, I believe that the PhD program director mentions that in the personal email communication. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Amin, you raised your hand.
Yeah. I had the other question about my statement of purpose. In our statement of purpose, whether should we be too specific about the focus, about the area of research we want to focus during in our PhD studies? For example, I want to study the urban regeneration of socially and economically deprived ethnic neighborhoods, but and how community engagement strategies, place-making strategies could help. Whether I should be too specific on the area I want to focus during my PhD studies. For example, there will be many neighborhoods across Europe after the war in Syria and Afghanistan, especially now in Iran. There is many neighborhoods where people from Afghanistan or other ethnic communities are living now. Whether I should be too specific on the focus area, on the research area you want to focus during my master's studies about the neighborhoods I want to study about them or not?
Well, I mean, depending on the topics, I cannot really say what level is too detailed and then what is not. But I mean, what you would like to do is inform and explain your research interests to the potential advisors, right? So then, I mean, this is personal opinion, but do not really want to hear, methods that you're going to use, and some data sources that you'd like to use, because that may change after 2 years of your coursework. And then so my personal view is once you get into too much detail, then you kind of narrow your path, and then there is no room for advising and mentoring. So that's kind of the limitation that I see in the too much detail in that statement purpose. But certainly you would like to inform your research interests and what subjects and in what areas and so on. Does anyone wants to add to that? Nick, Bianca?
So I would say I was very specific. It worked in my favor. I don't know. But, I came in with a background already having dealt with a particular community in Washington, D.C., which was Ward 8. And my dissertation research focuses on Ward 8, D.C. So I established a connection that I already had a connection with this neighborhood, and then why I wanted to use these particular methods to understand what was happening. My research is gentrification and displacement. I wanted to understand how gentrification was impacting this particular neighborhood and how it was displacing its long-term residents. And I knew that Dr. Willow Longamam studied gentrification and displacement. She did it on a suburban level, but I was looking at more of an urban issue. And so I talked about that. I even named her in my personal statement, like, this is the person that I want to work with. But I also talked about other faculty members that could contribute to that, like Dr. Casey Dawkins, who focuses on housing, and housing is a big issue when people are displaced from their residences. So you really just want to give them a opportunity to know that you will be able to use the assistance and the advising of our faculty and staff, and just faculty and staff throughout UMD, but that they will be able to help you because their expertise lends itself well to what you are researching. That is what you look for in an advisor, and that is what you hope, when you're getting into a program. So I would say be specific enough to where they have a good understanding and can conceptualize what you want to study, but you don't have to be so specific, down to its itty bitty crumb, because some of those things you don't know yet. And some of those things you will be able to develop through that advising that you're going to get from your mentors. So I would say be specific enough to give them a general overview of what you want to study, where the location might be in general, in a broad sense, but then also leave room for them to have in their mind, like, I can contribute to this student in this way or in that way. Nick, would you agree with that?
You said it well. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I believe that Bianca did homework quite a lot.
I did.
Before applying. And then, she, as she said, she is local. So she established a connection with Dr. Langamam. And actually, you attended the in-person open house that I remember. Yep. So that kind of homework, and then, personal conversations and discussion with the potential advisors, that allow you to get into some details in that statement of purpose. Yeah. All right. I think Saba, or you raised your hand.
Hi, everyone. This is my second time joining this session. The first time I had to leave early. But this time I just wanted to speak with Nick quickly before you do head out about the Center for Smart Growth. So you mentioned some of the major programs in here, and I don't know if you mentioned creative placemaking. Did that come up, or do you know anything about that specific program?
Well, I do not know a ton because it's not an area that I touch, but Dr. Ronit Eisenbach, I don't know if you've read about her work or reached out to her, but she is the person to talk to about creative placemaking because it pretty much sits entirely under her purview. I'll put her name in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Hero, really quick, we also had a question in the chat as well. It says, does the program publish an estimated cost of attendance for the 3 years? For example, like law schools do. Like, do you give an overview of how much students can expect to pay?
I do not know from my top of my head. So probably administrative person can know better.
Yeah.
So sorry that I do not have a clear answer for that.
I have another question, just in regards to that. So from like the conversation today and what I've read online, we basically have to, if we're not fully we don't have a scholarship or we're not fully funded by the department, we're going to have to find different opportunities to be able to fund our studies. And so that's something that happens before we apply or after we apply and get admitted. How does it work?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the situation that you explained.
I mean, if I'm looking for opportunities for work, alongside, you know, being a student at UMD, do I have to apply for those opportunities like beforehand when I start thinking about applying, or after I'm accepted into the program?
That's actually a very good question. So that Kristen provided a link to apply for some opportunities on campus. And then I'm not quite sure by myself whether or not you can apply for that position before being admitted. My guess is probably you need to be admitted in order to apply for the positions that have the limitations. You know, the GA-ship is GA-ship, so that is offered only to the students of the university. So that requires the status as a student. So, but yeah, I mean, let me check that, and then hopefully I can find an answer for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We have another question from Salome.
Okay, Salome, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is my second time I'm attending this meeting. So my question after Dr. Nick talked about smart growth and also community development, as I mentioned before, my interest lies in community-based resiliency through extreme climate events. So my question is about that. How about doing my research in terms of interdisciplinary approach, in terms of community development, and also resiliency? I mean, is it possible or no? I just apply separately and then we can consider which area is better.
Well, I mean, what you just mentioned seems to be the area of research for the Dr. Hendricks.
Yep.
Right.
I recommend you to contact him. And I mean, he works on the resiliency issues, and then his perspective is, you know, the community planning. So, yeah. And so, I mean, the interdisciplinary subjects, but both are within the field of planning. So you do not have any problem in regard to combining these subjects together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also just add, Salome, that sometimes, even if it's not through the National Center for Smart Growth and CSG, some of your advisors may have separate funding. So they also apply for separate funding for different projects as well. So, you know, you can reach out to Dr. Hendricks. He might not be on NCSG's site, but he might have applied for funding for another project that is on that topic, because that is his topic. So you also always want to just reach out to the advisor that you think you might be closely aligned with, just to see if they have the funding to take on any students, as well as looking at places like NCSG and other places like that.
Yeah, I see. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Asim, you have another question?
Hi, yeah. So about reaching out to potential supervisors. So, you know, if you like, I just sent few emails, but I didn't get any reply. I can understand that, you know, like professors might be extremely busy and whatever, but, you know, how can, like, how can I reach out if I don't get any reply? You know, I'm like clueless. Maybe they are not interested in my kind of research interest don't align, or I'm not too sure if I should apply to this school, you know, all these kind of confusion arises. So if there's any way, alternate way to reach out to the two professors that I was trying to contact, Dr. Fredericks and Dr. Long Amam, so I would be grateful. Thank you.
So I
Right.
will say, oh, well, Hero, did you want to respond?
Well, I mean, that is a very difficult issue, as you mentioned by yourself, and the faculty members are so busy. And then even my email get ignored every now and then. Well, actually, constantly. So, I mean, you can send me an email, and then I can forward your emails to these two faculty members as a try. But again, I cannot promise they are going to respond to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is really busy at the end of the year because they have finals and some of them have so many projects. And I will say, you know, one of the downsides for virtual is that you don't get to get in front of their face, because Dr. Lungamam actually didn't respond to my email when I was applying either. And Hero will tell you, I cornered her at a coffee table at the graduate open house and was like, lady, put me on your schedule right now. But that's just a more persistent example. But Amin had the same question the last open house, and he was interested in Dr. Willa Lungamam, and I work for Dr. Lungamam. She's also my advisor. So now that I know you have reached out to her particularly, I will bring it up in our meeting. We meet every single week. And that's just, I can't promise she's gonna respond, but I will mention it, and then there may be,
that would be
in addition to Hero, maybe, you know, adding me in there a little bit too. She's gonna hear your name a few times and say, let me just stop and check my email. It was successful for Amin, so hopefully the same.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a benefit for you to join the open house instead of sending me emails to ask about that.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Well,
all right. We are past 2 p.m. So would like to close sometime soon, but are there any remaining questions? No?
One more question. So following up on that, is it required that I pick faculty and reach out to them and make sure it's all set up before I apply?
Well, it's not required, but that will increase the likelihood that you're going to be admitted.
Yeah. I would say you should have a general idea of who you want to work with, and reaching out to them puts your name at the top of their minds, right? Like at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of different things that are going to go into the decision, you know, but if they say, oh, this is the application of Bianca, for instance, right? And then Hero says, I remember Bianca from open house. And then Willow says, I also remember Bianca from open house. Now they have, you know, kind of it's a personal
repertoire
thing.
Yeah,
exactly. And they can put a face to a name, and they can see that you were persistent enough to reach out via email and talk about your research, so they can get a sense of who you are as well. So I would say no, it's not required, like Hero said, but it is strongly recommended that if you want to connect with somebody, or you know that this faculty is the one that you're interested in, you should definitely reach out to them, even if it's just to send them your resume and to say hello.
Okay, thanks so much, Bianca.
You're welcome.
All right, so I guess this is all that we have today. So thank you again for joining us for this open house session. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Absolutely.